I'm holding two G-Shock Full Metal knockoffs made by the greatest titans of the knockoff digital watch industry, Sanda and Skemei. Which G-Shock Full Metal knockoff shall prevail? We shall find out. I am the first person to do an English review on YouTube of the Sanda 390, and I was also the first person to do an English review of the Skemei 1456. The Skemei here went head-to-head against my Casio Full Metal G-Shock, and I did a comparison review of these watches earlier. I'll leave a link to this review in the description. I bought both of these watches on AliExpress. One seller is currently selling the Sanda for about $10 on AliExpress. A seller is currently selling the Skemei for about $15. The dimensions of these watches are nearly identical. The most striking difference between the Sanda and the Skemei is the finishing on their cases. The Sanda has what appears to be an all-brush case. My camera doesn't show things in great detail, but the brushing on the Sanda is quite awful. It might not even be brushed. The finishing might be painted on. It might be a bad bead blasting job. I really have no idea what process can produce such a horrible finishing. Now, despite Sanda's sloppy finishing, I greatly prefer it to the Skemei's all-polished case. While Skemei did an admirable job with the polishing, I rarely like polishing on watches, and the polishing on the Skemei really clashes with the all-brushed bracelet. When I did the comparison between the Skemei and the G-Shock Full Metal, I listed the Skemei's crystal as being made out of plastic. This may have been a mistake, and some people in the comments insisted that the crystal is glass. I assumed the Skemei's crystal was plastic because A, it was extremely shiny, and B, when you tapped it, it made a very hollow sound. I'm not going to try to reproduce it as I'm wearing gloves. When I tap the Sanda, it makes more of a thud. It really looks like glass as well. If the crystal on the Skemei is in fact made out of glass, it is the most plasticky glass I've ever encountered. While the Skemei's display is more readable when viewed from angles, the Sanda's display is altogether vastly more readable because the crystal is not reflective like the Skemei's. I think aesthetically the area around the Sanda's display looks better and also integrates a lot better with the case than the Skemei. The reflectivity of the polished bezel of the Skemei adds to the visual noise created by all the glare of the reflective crystal. I really dislike that sport watch is written on the top of the Sanda's bezel, primarily because it's not proper English usage. It should say sports watch, not sport watch. Better yet, it could just say Sanda. I will be reviewing another Sanda watch in the future. It also has sport watch loudly written on it. I don't think Sanda understands how obnoxious and stupid this practice is. The Skemei uses a pop-off case back, which is inherently less water resistant than the Sanda's case back, which is affixed to the watch with screws. The Sanda's water resistance rating is rated at 5 ATM, whereas the Skemei's water resistant rating is 3 ATM. I personally wouldn't take a 5 ATM watch swimming, but 5 ATM makes me feel a little less nervous around water than 3 ATM. The big issue with the Sanda's case is that the edges of the case where it connects to the bracelet protrude at an extreme angle. So here's the Sanda's case, and you can see that this is the protrusion that I'm talking about, how it's flaring, that the sides of the watch really flare out. Now I'm going to compare that to the Skemei, and you'll notice that the sides of the watch are much more rounded, that they don't flare out so much. Now this is going to make a big difference when I put the watch on my wrist. So I'm going to show you how the watch looks, each watch looks on my wrist. Okay, so this is the Sanda, and you can see the sides of the case really flare out. And it doesn't really feel that bad, but it looks pretty awkward. Now I'll show you the difference, and I'll show you put on the Skemei now. Now this is the Skemei, and as you can see, this watch conforms to my wrist much better. I'm talking about the case. You can see that this is actually part of the case, but it's much more rounded than the Sanda. It doesn't jut out. So this looks a lot better, and it feels better. The Sanda's bracelet is a lot lighter than the Skemei's. It also feels a lot cheaper. Both watches use pressed metal links, but the Skemei's links look and feel sturdier. These are the Skemei's links, and these are the Sanda's links. Sanda made a great effort to emulate the Full Metal G-Shock's bracelet. It looks and feels much more like the Casio Full Metal. Both bracelets use push pins. The Sanda bracelet width starts at 25.5 millimeters and tapers down to 20 millimeters. The Skemei's bracelet starts at 25 millimeters and tapers down to 22 millimeters. The 2 millimeter increase in the Sanda's taper makes it more comfortable. Sanda put a lot of effort into making the bracelet comfortable. They even smoothed the edges of the upper portion of the bracelet. Sanda polished the sides of its bracelet, and Skemei did not. Sanda lazily went with an ice pick style clasp, and the links are too short for the clasp, which I'll show you. As you can see, they're too short, so it leaves a gap for bare skin to get scraped against. The lever is also slightly loose. It's not terribly loose, but you'll often get slightly loose levers in ice pick style clasps. If you've watched my past videos, you know that I really detest ice pick style clasps, but given the Skemei's price point, I'm not going to complain, though they could have done a lot better, and Skemei completely owned them in this category. Skemei used a clasp that emulated the design of the Full Metal G-Shock clasp. Here's the real McCoy. This is the G-Shock. While the Sanda clasp uses rough and thin metal, and the G-Shock clasp uses thick and smooth metal, it appears to be very secure, and there's virtually no gap between the bracelet links and the clasp. In some respects, Skemei even outdid G-Shock in the clasp, because Skemei's clasp, while it uses thicker metal that's been smoothed so it won't scrape your skin, they used, G-Shock didn't size their clasp. They just used what appears to be a generic clasp, and there's a huge gap, and there's really no need for that whatsoever. It's pretty Mickey Mouse. Skemei earned a lot of points for me by deciding to go with a good and fitted clasp. A bracelet is only as good as its clasp. For the price, I think that the Sanda is a good value. However, I think the Skemei is overall a better watch. As appealing as some of the Sanda's features are, first and foremost its superior readability, I find the Sanda's bizarrely angled case edges too visually off-putting for me to want to wear this watch. The Skemei's bracelet is more solidly constructed, and the clasp is much more secure and comfortable than the Sanda's. I suspect that the Skemei is going to stand up to more abuse and last longer than the Sanda.